Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of the Hitting the Field podcast. It is your host, Jeremy Brener, here. Today, we are talking Western Conference basketball. The NBA is on its heels of a return, and we have all the Western Conference analysis for you today. That's right, and I cannot do this alone, so I brought two of HTF's best and brightest to the show to talk more Western Conference basketball. And we can't do I feel like we can't do a basketball podcast on HTF without Mr. Basketball himself, Ross Bernstein. Ross, how you doing, my friend?
I am doing swell. Excited to talk about the Western Conference today. Arguably the craziest conference for the past 6-7 years. It seems like it hasn't even been close, even with LeBron returning to Cleveland. The West is stacked this year. They are really going to dominate the bubble and dominate all the stories around the bubble. So I am really excited to talk some Western Conference today.
Yeah, it's the first Western Conference playoffs with LeBron, so that's history in the making. And again, we also have Chris Wolf on the podcast. Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I can't wait to talk about this great conference. So much talent. There are quite a few teams I think that can come out of this one.
Yeah, I think the West, just like every year, is very tight, and this year is no exception. We have the Battle of LA at the top of the conference with the Lakers and the Clippers. Shame we can't get a 7-game series all in Staples Center this year, but 13 of the 15 Western Conference teams are in the bubble right now. All the teams except for Minnesota and Golden State are currently in the bubble, waiting for competition to resume, which comes 2 weeks from today. So that should be pretty exciting. But let's get right to it. We do have a lot to talk about today. I don't want to waste too much more time, but the West has a lot of teams coming from below the playoff line. Like 5 of the Western Conference teams won't make it to the playoffs. So there's a tight race for the playoffs. Starting out at number 8 with the Grizzlies. So of course we talked a little bit about how in previous podcasts how this 3.5 or 4-game, 3.5-game divide between 8th and 9th could get you to a play-in series in the bubble, which is something the NBA has never done before. So we have a lot of teams that are fighting for this play-in game. As of now, if you're within 4 games under, you qualify. And the Blazers, Pelicans, and Kings are all 21.5 games back of first place and 3.5 back of 8th. The Spurs are just a half game behind them, 22 back of first and 4 back of 8th. And the Suns have a really tough road ahead for these 8 games, but they still got a shot. 6 games back and 24 back at the conference. So I'm going to ask you guys here, of these 6 teams right here, Grizzlies, Blazers, Pelicans, Kings, Spurs, Suns, which one scares you the most? Because obviously these teams are fighting for the 8th seed, a chance to play the Lakers in the first round. Which of these teams are you the most impressed by? Ross, I'll start with you.
The team I'm most impressed by that I think could give a Lakers or a Clippers a run for the money would probably be the Portland Trailblazers, although the team I would love to see is Zion Williamson in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think Portland is the best team that could give probably the Lakers a shot, considering the Lakers are 5 games ahead of the Clippers right now. You got Carmelo, who's looking great. I don't know if you guys have seen pictures of him lately. It looks like he's dropped maybe 8 to 10 pounds of body fat. He looks really good. Looks like he's in shape, and I'm sure he's gotten a lot of reps. And knowing him, he's probably has some type of facility at his house. He's going to be ready to go. But you have Dame time, and you got CJ McCollum. You have a great team, and a team that has had a lot of playoff experience that they got whopped last year. They got destroyed by – I mean, although they were not favored to win that series, it was some crazy stat. They led for more of the game than Golden State. I think for most of the series, they were in the lead, and they just could never hold on to it in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They probably didn't forget about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to give LA
every game run in that 4-game series last year.
They could have won every one. Yeah, no, and they just folded at the end, and I'm sure they have a sour taste in their mouth. But I would love to see New Orleans because Zion LeBron matchup would be the passing of the torch matchup that I think every NBA fan wants to see, but Portland's probably the team.
Chris, what team impresses you the most out of these bottom 6 teams?
There's a few that I've liked, but if I'm gonna say like what I'm most impressed by in terms of record and how they were supposed to be this season, I'm gonna say I'm most impressed by Memphis because I did not see them being a around 500 team at this point of the season before it went down, and they'd be in a playoffs, even close to a playoff spot. Like the fact that John Morant has led this team to a top 8 spot in the West in his first year, that has impressed me a lot.
Yeah.
In terms, and especially with not having the greatest talent, but they have good players like Valanciunas. They have Dylan Brooks. They have Jaren Jackson. So they have good players that are young, but there's like no superstars, obviously. But I've just been impressed with Memphis, though I would love to see Dame time. It's not really a playoff without Dame time, and obviously I would love to see Zion versus LeBron, AD versus his former team. Even though this is a bubble, it would still be exciting. But my most impressing was Memphis.
Yeah, this bubble is going to start out these 8 games before the real playoffs get started. This is going to be the playoffs, the playoffs before the playoffs, if you will. So I think it's safe to say that the Kings, Spurs, and Suns are not going to be that in the top 9. Is that safe to say, guys? Would you agree?
The Kings, Spurs, and Suns. I think the Suns for sure, but the Kings are only 1 game behind of Portland. It's definitely not to say, although talent-wise it wouldn't be the most interesting matchup. And I can never count out Greg Popovich, but I'll count out the Suns. That's the only team I
count out the Suns.
Okay, so why the Spurs? Give the argument, Ross, for why the Spurs can make a run here and be in that top 8.
I don't think they can make a run, but I just won't count out Greg Popovich. I know they lost LaMarcus Aldridge. I know that everything's stacked against him. I just, as someone that has watched Popovich coach basically my entire life, I just can't count out a guy when he's that close to not rally a team and come up with some type of game plan. He's had months to prepare for this. It's simply that. They're rostered, obviously, based on that. There's no logical argument I could have for it because they've lost their best player.
Mm-hmm.
But I just won't count out Popovich. I don't think they'll do it, but I won't count them out per se.
Yeah. The Spurs start their bubble games with Sacramento and Memphis. So they will find out real quick if they have a shot or not. Mm-hmm. They're going to find – and they don't have LaMarcus Aldridge, so that is a bit of a challenge for them that they are going to have to overcome. Chris, do you think that the Spurs have a shot here?
I give him a puncher's chance because obviously what Ross said, you can't count out Greg Popovich. I believe it's the last time they missed the playoffs was the season before Tim Duncan.
Yeah, we're talking before any of us were born, I think.
Yeah,
well,
so
Chris, I don't know about you, but
I may have been.
They have every year that you've been alive, Chris, and you're turning 23 in a matter of a few days. So yeah, they have. That's how long that they have not been in the playoffs.
So it's like I just don't. So I can never count that out. I mean, you can never count that out. They have good young players. I mean, DeJounte Murray, I think, is going to be the face of that team.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know about that.
He has a chance to be.
He looked like it.
They tried to. I think that they tried to for a little bit, but I just think he's injured far too much, and I don't know. I think that team they need a new direction, and DeMar DeRozan isn't going to do it for them. I mean, Look, DeMar DeRozan could have the best 8 games of his life, and San Antonio might get a shot to play. Because the thing is, every team that's not 8th place right now, every team that's not the Memphis Grizzlies right now, are really only fighting to get a chance to get into the play-in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could have, like, these teams, the, Blazers, Kings, Pelicans, Spurs, they're going to have to outplay each other. And then just to get to a point where you have to win 2 games instead of 1 where the Grizzlies have to win. So really, I mean, the Grizzlies, for them, they are preparing for these 8 games. And, they're going to hope and try to build some gap between the teams so that they don't have to play in this play-in. But if they for some reason, like if they're 3-5, they'll have a chance at the playoff, in which they would likely be the higher seed. So I think Memphis also has something to play for, and they are better. So I think that's what's so difficult for these teams to make it. To be honest, I think Memphis will be the 8th seed. But I think that there are teams that can challenge them. The Spurs are not the team that comes to mind first. For me, the team that comes to mind as the team that can challenge them is honestly, it's the Pelicans. And the reason for that, the reason for me saying that is because before the season ended, and the big reason why to advocate for these non-playoff teams to get in the playoffs was New Orleans, because they had the easiest schedule left in terms of strength of schedule versus any other team. But I mean, this team started 6-22. Let's get that right. They lost 13 straight games. Didn't get their first win in December until the 18th of the month. They had, and that long losing streak really set them back. And they've had, ever since then, they've had to work through that terrible first part of the season where they were last in the West. They were last in the West for a good time. So they were 6-22. They ended the season 28-36 before the season was postponed. So they had a turnaround. They were 22-14 in their last 36, and their playoff schedule before the play-in is pretty favorable. They get the first game in the bubble against the Jazz, a team that is injured. Then you have a game against Memphis, 2 games against Sacramento, a game against Washington, San Antonio, Orlando. Their only team that is probably a real big challenge for them that isn't a for sure winnable game is the LA Clippers. That's the only game they have. So 7 of these games are winnable. So if they go 7-1, they are probably going to be that 19 that will have a chance at a wild card 8th seed. So that's, to me, why it's New Orleans. But give me a reason why it would be Portland, because I think Portland also has a shot here. So why would Portland be the team? And Ross, I know you're an advocate for them. So why Portland instead of for the top 9?
I think on paper you could argue, although the Pelicans are a younger team that has probably more potential in the upcoming future, I just think having McCollum and having Lillard and Melo, and with the taste of last year still in their mouth, I think they'll be able to push through. And they're still 1 game ahead, although that doesn't mean a whole lot. Mm-hmm. They're technically, I think, half a game ahead or something.
Their winning percentage is higher.
The winning percentage is slightly higher.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think the McCollum-Lillard duo is just too talented to just not get in. And although I would love to see New Orleans, I still think they're a bit too young. We got to see how Zion's body's holding up. Although he looks great, it seems like every photo he looks different. One photo you'll get a picture of him, he'll look like actual Thanos. And then another picture you look like, he's like, oh, this guy's kind of out of shape. He can lose 10 pounds. It's really that lighting thing, I think, based on his pictures. But besides that, he's still a young guy. How old is he? Is he even 21 yet? I'm not even sure.
20 maybe.
I think he's still 20. I would love to see it happen, and they do have a very easy schedule, right? But I just think the taste of last year is just too much for them just not to pull through.
I don't know. Portland's schedule, I do think Portland is one of those teams that is a lot better than what their record says. I think that injuries have really set this team back. They didn't have Nurkic for the whole year. They will likely have him play in the bubble. Lillard was in and out of the lineup. McCollum was in and out of the lineup. Zach Collins, who was their starting power forward in last year's playoff run, he's been out for most of the year. So they've had struggles based on injuries that they might not necessarily have in the bubble. But their schedule is rather one of the more difficult ones. It's definitely more difficult than New Orleans, which is the team they're being compared to the most. They get Memphis in their first game in the bubble, so they're going to get a a real solid opportunity, like to see what they're playing for, and to try to give them a fighting chance right away. That first game in the bubble, Friday at 4 p.m. So then they get Boston, Houston, Denver, the Clippers, the Sixers,
My God.
Dallas, and Brooklyn. So that to me is rather difficult.
It is.
But Portland's also a team that I think they could win any. Like, I'm not going to go into this game and say, Boston's definitely beating Portland or Houston's definitely beating Portland. I think Portland is a team that can play spoiler on any given night because they have Damian Lillard, because they have CJ McCollum, they have the backcourt that can do this. They have Melo. So that's why you can't count Portland out. The thing with Portland, though, is they have the reason why I choose New Orleans. Look, Portland, in my opinion, is the better team. They are the better team, top to bottom, talent-wise, roster-wise. I would take Portland over New Orleans any day. However, just given the circumstances, and I do think the fact that New Orleans being young, I think is going to benefit them in the first 8 games. I think that is going to be the deciding factor here. And the thing is, they're playing for 9th. Like, if you gave me if you told me Portland New Orleans was going to be the series, the 2-game series, I would take Portland in that series. I think that Portland matches up. Portland would give New Orleans a couple fits. However, I think that Portland's schedule is just too difficult. And given that New Orleans could easily go 7-1, that would mean that Portland would need to go 7-1 as well. And chances are, against this schedule, 7-1 is not likely.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless,
it would be difficult.
Regardless of who comes out as this 9th seeded team, they're going to likely need to face Memphis to get into the playoffs. So, Chris, I know you're a strong advocate for Memphis. Why is Memphis the best team out of the teams that are not in the top 7?
I think I just like I like how they were consistent this season. They've been they haven't like had a big lull in the season, but they haven't been too bad or too good. They've been pretty much average given their record. They're 32 and 33, so they've been more consistent than all these other teams. Injury wise, they've been fairly healthy, more healthy than these than like New Orleans or Portland. And I also just think the fact that they have, I think, what is it, like a 3.5 game lead on both of them right now?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like they will be that 8 spot when it comes to the end. I feel like they will be able to win 1 game since they only have to win 1.
Yeah.
So I think they will win 1 game, in my opinion. That's because of all it takes. And I just loved Ja Morant this year. He's going to be a star in this league. I just had that feeling. He's going to be a star in this league. I love his play style. I love the energy he plays with, and I think that's also feeding off a little bit on on his teammates because they've been a lot better than I thought they'd be.
Yeah. And you look at Memphis's schedule, they have, their schedule is kind of in between Portland and New Orleans. It's not as easy as New Orleans, but it's not as difficult as Portland's. They get Portland right out of the gate to really kind of create some distance for them. San Antonio, New Orleans. So those 2 games in the beginning are very important. If they can win both of those games, they could be the 8 seed outright. And that's their goal. Their goal is I think that their goal for the bubble is to get in a position where they don't have to play in the play-in series. If they can do that, then they're going to go in with a lot of confidence against the Lakers, and that might be enough to snag a game or 2 out of the Lakers. I think right before the season let out, the Grizzlies played the Lakers in late February, and it was in Memphis, and that was part of the reason why the Grizzlies won by nearly 20. But it was kind of Ja Morant's coming out party in a way. Ja Morant had 27 and 14 assists in this game. Totally outplaying LeBron, and it was just I remember watching this game and seeing the highlights for it.
Yeah.
Very impressive effort from John Morant. Like, if you wanted to make the case for John Morant for Rookie of the Year, this was the game to make the case for. And this is what John Morant can do. And that's what I'm most excited to see with Memphis, is just to see how John Morant plays. Because, given that he's been with Memphis and he was the number 2 pick, he didn't get a whole lot of fanfare, I would say, coming out of the league, especially because Zion was picked right before him. But with Zion being injured, it's definitely given a chance for John Morant to be the premier rookie, and he's delivered. He's delivered. So the fact that we could see a John Morant Zion series here in the play-in series is something that I would appreciate, or even a John Morant and Damian Lillard series. I see a lot of Damian Lillard in John Morant. I think John Morant is he's the closest player to Russell Westbrook that we've seen since Russell Westbrook came out of the draft, and he's got some Damian Lillard in him too.
I could agree with that. John Wall speed.
And he is going to be so fun to watch. I obviously have a lot more of an appreciation for Russell Westbrook than I did a year ago, so that's why I appreciate John Morant. But I think that there's also a chance. Do you think that there is a chance that Memphis can win this outright and won't need a play-in series?
I don't think Memphis wins it outright. That means they have to get to the 7th seed, right?
No, that means they have to get to that means they just have to be within they have to be over 4 games between them and 9th.
Oh, I did forget about that.
I think
there's no guarantee that there's going to be a play-in series. It's obviously much more likely in the West, given that there's so many more teams than the East, where it's only Washington that can really qualify. So the West has a lot more riding on it, and it comes down to a lot of factors. But do you think that Memphis can expand on its lead in these last 8 games and be more than 4 games ahead of all of them when it's all said and done?
I think it's very much possible, considering they're already 3 games ahead, and their schedule is not too bad. There's a chance that once they play Milwaukee in the last game, which could be a deciding game, Milwaukee might rest their whole team. There's a chance Milwaukee's going to be so far ahead. It's OKC is a very winnable game. It's really up to those first 3 games, because they're already playing Portland, San Antonio, and New Orleans. If they're able to start it 3-0, it could really put a dent in a lot of those teams, because that gives them even more of a gap against teams that they have to see. The rest of it is mostly Eastern Conference teams. I guess 3-2, Utah, OKC. I think it's possible. They'd have to get over 4 games, right? If it's 4, they still have to play the 9th.
Yeah, I think it's 4.5.
I think it's. I mean, as corny as it's a 50-50 shot. It's not out of the realm of possibilities, but with how easy New Orleans' schedule is and how much I like Portland, I don't know if they'll lose enough games. Not saying that Memphis can't win all those games. Mm-hmm. I still think it'll be close. I think someone will be within 4, though. I think so.
I'll be honest. I think that there will be a play-in series between Memphis and New Orleans, and the only
I would love it.
And because I think that's what the league had in mind when creating this. I think, and Damian Lillard won't be a bad. It won't be bad if he infringes on that as well, because of what he's become in the NBA. But New Orleans has a schedule in which they could easily go 7-1. I truly believe that they will go 7-1, and if they go 7-1, that means that Memphis is going to have to go 8-0, and if they go 8-0, that means that they win every game at Memphis. The one New Orleans game they lose is against Memphis. So that's what they're going to have to do if they want to win, and they want to get out of this play-in series. So I think it's gonna happen. New Orleans, to me, just has a much more favorable schedule. Maybe Sacramento can steal one of those 2 games against them, but I feel like by the time they play the second time, Sacramento will be out of the running, and they're just gonna play. They're really not gonna play to their utmost potential. So, yeah, I think it's gonna be New Orleans versus Memphis in that play-in series, and I think Memphis would beat New Orleans in that play-in series. I think they can win 1 game out of 2.
Yeah, I could see it. I
What
still
do you
think
think, Chris?
Portland. I still think Portland will come in. I think Portland will get it, and I think they'll beat Memphis.
You think
I just
Portland-
like Portland a lot. I just like Portland a lot if they get to the 9th seed. I think it's going to be harder to get to the 9th seed than to beat Memphis. Honestly, I just think they have too much talent and too much experience.
I think out of these three teams, put them all on paper, Portland is the best team.
Yeah, I just think they have the most difficult road to actually get to the plan. But if they do, that's my pick.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, what do you think?
I have it being Memphis and Memphis and New Orleans, and I think Memphis. I also think Memphis is going to win, though Portland is the more well-equipped team to play a tougher schedule, though, because they're used to playing in bigger games, and they have beaten, like, they went to LA and beat the Lakers. They did do that, so they can beat those teams, even though their record is 8 below. They are fully capable of beating any of those teams on their schedule, even though it's tough. But I'm gonna roll with the top 2 picks of this draft. I'm gonna roll with that as a play-in series, and the number 2 is gonna get the advantage.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, these teams are only playing to get beat by the Lakers in the first round. I hate to say it, but that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there any of these teams that have a legit chance at beating the Lakers in the first round?
No.
If you even had one, it would be Portland of those 3 teams. If you were even gonna think about it, but none of those 3 teams will win.
I'd like to see AD versus Zion.
I would love to see LeBron versus Zion.
LeBron versus Zion.
If the league has any hand in this and any conspiracy that anyone believes, they're gonna try their hardest to get Zion versus LeBron, because that's gonna be the story of the whole first week.
I mean,
that's gonna be the biggest series.
The fact that they could have picked any team to be like they didn't pick the LA team game to open up the season again. They chose Zion against the Utah Jazz. That was what they wanted their first game to be. So they clearly feel some kind of way about Zion.
And he's going to be the new face.
That's true.
He is.
I mean, that's what they're trying to do, and I don't know. I feel like we're skipping. Like, I feel like we're at this point where it's Halloween and we're skipping Thanksgiving, just going straight to Christmas. And I feel like Giannis is Thanksgiving, and he's like, "What's that all about?" You know,
small market team, and on it, like, having an American. I feel like they always try to have an American player as the face of the league.
I mean, it's
not
like
have their weird things.
Zion's a big name either.
You're right, but I think New Orleans is slightly of a bigger market than. Sure. But, big name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so let's move forward. We're all in agreement that the Lakers will beat any team in the play-in series. So what's the point of the play-in?
Yeah.
But let's move on to Dallas. Dallas currently holds the 7th seed. I believe Dallas is all but locked for a top 7 seed. But I mean, they are a lot closer to the top of the standings than we expect. They're only 4 games back of the 3rd seeded Nuggets. So, can Luka and Kristaps pull some magic here in the bubble? We'll see. But they have their schedule starts out. You know, it's actually pretty favorable, the schedule. So they get Houston to start, followed by Phoenix, Sacramento, the Clippers, the Bucks, the Jazz, the Blazers, and then the Suns for a second time. So it's a pretty favorable schedule. And for a team, you know, Luka's the star of this team, and he has been all season. That's why they're in a position to win in just his second year. And Dallas is a team that I feel like is overlooked, and they share a lot of the same qualities that Zion does with New Orleans, as a team that, you know, they're going to be marketed as a team that might be able to do something, but in actuality, they're a team that will be doing things down the line. They're like, I can't imagine how many Luka Zion series we're going to get in our basketball lifetime. I'm sure we will get at least one, and it will be an epic series, as we all expect it to be. But I don't know if it's going to be this year, and that's the thing with Luka and the Mavs. They are good and they will be good. I just don't know if it'll be this year. But do you guys agree with that?
I think they'll give, if they get to a 6 seed. I think the two LA teams up top are leagues above the rest. As much as Denver's a great team and Houston's a great team, I think this is the LA playoffs, and everyone's just there to kind of get whooped by them. Honestly, I've had Clippers at the beginning of the year. Lakers look amazing, but if Dallas gets slipped to the 6 seed and play anyone besides LA, I don't see them. I see them winning the first round. I think they could beat Denver. I think they could beat Utah, OKC, or Houston. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibilities. I just think they're such a well-built team with such a great coach, and I think they're ready to play. And they have a very deep team. Their schedule is not that bad. They have Houston at the beginning, which is going to be a tougher game.
Test right there.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. But overall, I'm trying to pull up the rest of their schedule right now.
Houston, Phoenix, Sacramento, the Clippers, the Bucks, Utah, Portland, Phoenix.
Yeah, so their first game against Houston's hard, but the next two should be easily beatable. You should beat Phoenix, you should beat Sacramento. And you never know with Kawhi and his load management whether he's even going to play or not. So that's a good game. Milwaukee can be so far ahead. And then their last 3 games are really going to be the one where those could all be potential playing games besides Phoenix. Because you already know Utah's going to be jostling for position like every other team in the West.
Right.
And Portland could still be playing for a buy-in. But they do have a very, very, very deep team. Kristaps Porzingis could not have found a better home than the Mavericks. And I believe that because as much as I love Porzingis and he's an amazing talent, he's not a first fiddle. He's an amazing second fiddle, and I think a perfect third fiddle if they could find a second fiddle, honestly. I think second's still a lot of pressure for him. And when you leave a place like New York, it says something. It says you are not a bright lights guy, which is fine because a lot of players, they can't handle that pressure playing in New York or in LA. There's only a certain breed of guys that love that. I think Luka is one of those guys. I think Luka, it always seems like whenever he had a trademark game on TNT, ESPN, he showed up even more. He loves that bright lights. Yeah. So I think Kristaps found a perfect home. I want, ideally, a Bobby versus Toby matchup in the first round. That'd be great to see. You have Dwight Powell. You have J.J. Barea. You have Brunson. You have the other Curry. You have a very deep team here with a great coach. I think anyone besides LA, they are going to win the first round. Honestly, I think they will beat Utah, OKC, or Houston. I think they could.
So does that mean you think that Dallas is the third best team in the West?
I do.
Really?
I really do.
Really?
I really do.
Wow.
I am a Luka stan, and I can tell you I'm a highly biased player. I think it's between them. I think it's between them and Denver. Denver's the only player. I think they are better than Houston, and I think they're better than OKC. I know this is going to hurt to say, and I know we're going to discuss Houston later, but it's always hard for me to buy into James Harden in the playoffs. I don't care if it's in a bubble or not.
James Harden was 1 win away from a finals.
Yeah.
Luka hasn't even touched the playoffs.
Listen, I'm a Luka stan, and I will admit I'm highly biased in these takes. And I'm not going to lie, Nuggets might take that third seed now that I really think about it and off emotion, but I think they're neck and neck. I think maybe last year's experience that the Nuggets got can maybe push them above, but I really do think they're better than Houston, and I think they're better than OKC, in my opinion. I think they're the fourth team easily.
Yeah. Dallas is a team that is knocking on the door. With their current setup, though, I'd be surprised if they made it to a conference finals. Just because I don't think, and the LA roadblock is very real. Look, their ceiling is third team in the West, but that's it's a really high ceiling. They still have they have 6 teams ahead of them in the standings, and they are a game and a half back of the 6th seed. So they have to play well and then some to make some movement. If they can get to a 6th seed, I think they could give a team like Denver a run for their money. Or a team like I don't think Utah is going to be trending upwards. I think the only way for Utah to go is where they are or below. But I think that I think in the right circumstance you could see Dallas. You could see Dallas in a strong position moving forward. I don't know if it's this year. I mean, Luka had really close to an MVP year I think he will be like third or fourth in the MVP voting when it's all said and done. But to say that they're better right now than every team other than LA, I don't agree. I think that they need some more time in the oven.
I got you.
And like Denver is in that position now. So like that last year, Denver shot up the standings, and everyone's like, "Oh, is Denver the challenger to Golden State, et cetera, et cetera?" They were the number 2 seed, so it was expected to be that Denver was the challenger to Golden State. But Denver needed some more time in the oven, clearly. And we'll talk about Denver a little bit later, but let's just wrap up this thing on Dallas. Chris, do you expect them to move past the 7th seed before the playoffs start?
It's very. I think it's tough to see, but that first game is gonna be a big telling, because if they don't beat Houston, they dig themselves an entire game in a hole behind them.
Yeah,
it's a difference between being within a half game and 2.5 games if you win lose. So I think that first game is gonna be telling. I think, as much as I love Dallas, and I actually do, I kind of agree with Ross. I do believe that Dallas I think they're a top 4 team. I don't think they're 3, but I think they're like the 4th best team. But I believe where they are right now, I think they're going to sit at 7. Because I think even though it's not a ton of games, there's a ton of teams. And
yeah,
I don't think they will jump, but I do believe but that has nothing to do with how good they are. I just think it's just too much ground.
Yeah. I can agree with that. I can agree with that. Yeah. Let's move on now. I know Houston is at 6th, but I want to jump up one more spot to Oklahoma City, who sits currently as the 5th seed, although tied with the Rockets for the 5th seed. They own the tiebreaker as of now, but OKC has been probably the most pleasant surprise of this season so far. After losing your 2 best players, chances are you're not going to be nobody thought they'd be a playoff team, and here they are with 40 wins, right in the thick of things. Chris Paul has had one of the best seasons in his career, I would argue, even just as good as his Clippers days. Obviously, I think talent-wise, he's not there, but I think in terms of where he is and the position that he is, he's in a really strong position to succeed. And that's why Oklahoma City is where they are in the standings. And, they have a chance to make some noise here in this playoffs. They got Utah, Denver, the Lakers, Memphis, Washington, Phoenix, Miami, and the Clippers at the end. So a mixed bag of games to start, but let's figure this out. OKC, what is their ceiling in the bubble, Ross? I'll ask first.
Their ceiling in the bubble, if they're able to push. I'm not, as much as I appreciate what OKC has done this year, I just think their lack of talent will hold them back. I think their ceiling would be somehow managing a 3rd seed just based on if they have a good performance. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that technically would have to be their ceiling, considering they're not far behind. But I think whoever they play in the first round, they're a first-round exit, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not going to get to a 1 or 2 seed to play the 7th or 8th. And even if they do, if Dallas stays at 7th, I think they lose to Dallas. And this would be the perfect scenario for them to win, because all they've been doing is getting counted out since the beginning of the season. Everyone thought they'd be a lottery team, a low lottery team, and this is the best thing that could have ever happened to Billy Donovan, because I have been crapping on Billy Donovan for at least 3-4 years. I have said he's the worst coach in the NBA and should stay in college. I guess I'm wrong. It just happened that he couldn't play with Russell Westbrook because he couldn't get his coaching style done. But players like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander I really thought he was going to have a good season. I tried to draft him in all my fantasy basketball leagues. I didn't think he'd have this good of a season. I think they're a very young team, and Chris Paul is the perfect leader, because Chris Paul's going to he's like a Jimmy Butler-esque. You might hate him, but he's going to get the most out of you, and you're going to want to play hard for him, even if you hate him.
Right.
Danilo Gallinari has always been a player that has just not met expectations simply because he's hurt. He's been healthy this year. Steven Adams is one of the best pure centers in the league. By that, I mean he's not doing anything besides rebounding and staying in the paint.
Yeah.
You're not going to get anything else. You don't have to get anything else. This is a really good team. Schroeder should be a starting point guard at some point in his career. He's always seemed like a good six-man. But as much as this has been a great Cinderella story, it doesn't always work out at the end. And I think they'll lose to a team like a Mavericks or like an OKC. Or I think the only team they could beat in the first round is Utah, just because I don't know what's going on through Utah's head after this whole COVID scenario. But besides that, I think they're a first-round exit. Ceiling is they play Utah first round, win, and lose in the second round to whoever they play. Yeah. I don't know who it'd be. Either of the LA teams.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you think? Anything to add, Chris? Like what excites you the most about this Thunder team?
I love the youth they have, and it's actually somewhat mixed with some experience because
they have Chris Paul.
Steven Adams has played in the conference finals too. So Gallinari's played in some playoff games with when he was with Denver. So they do have some playoff experience with their team.
And they might get Andre Roberson back, and Roberson will be able to guard like LeBron or Kawhi. And even if it's for like 10, 15 minutes in the game, he was a very valuable part of their team while he was there. I think the 2016 team, he was a pretty valuable part of that. So that's important to note.
Yeah, and I think I think their ceiling is 4 because I think their ceiling is 4 and they beat Utah. Though I do think if they did somehow play Denver, I would give them a shot versus Denver. Because I think defensively, Oklahoma City is actually a really good defensive team. And they can score, too. They have good young scorers, too. So they're an efficient team. Let's just say that. They're a very efficient team.
Right.
Because Chris Paul is one of the most efficient point guards of all time. Gallinari is a 40+% three-point shooter. Steven Adams, he doesn't really miss that many shots because he's always at the rim. Dennis Schroeder, great, one of the best, maybe one of the front runners for Sixth Man of the Year this year. So, it's a very efficient team. So I wouldn't count them out, but obviously, farthest they go, second round exit.
Second round exit. I would agree with y'all. I would say though with Oklahoma City is Chris Paul has them very prepared. Paul has them very prepared. And I would not be surprised if Oklahoma City pulled out like a first round win. I really wouldn't be surprised. In terms of where they can end up, 4 probably, I think that 4 is their ceiling. I think they're more likely to be 5 or 6, just because I think that it depends on how Utah is. I think Utah holds a lot of these cards, and people are expecting Utah to probably be the worst out of these teams because without Bogdanovich, the Utah Jazz, in my opinion, become the 7th best team in the West. All 6 of the other playoff teams, including Dallas, are better than Utah without Bogdanovich. That's just, to me, where they sit in the totem pole of everything. And where Oklahoma City sits, they probably are 5th. I would say they're 5th or 6th. Dallas being in the middle there is questionable whether or not they're better than Dallas or not. So I think, though, given that Oklahoma City is a few games ahead of Dallas, their schedule, they have some winnable games there against the Wizards, against the Suns, against Utah. I think Oklahoma City is going to end up at number 5. And I think they're going to get. I think what I would love to see is I'd love to see the Rockets get the Thunder in the first round.
Oh yeah.
I think as a basketball fan, that's what I would want. As a Rockets fan, I think otherwise. Oklahoma City is not a team I want to see in the playoffs. That's for damn sure. I'm hoping for Utah. But I think what's more likely is a 4-5 matchup between the Thunder and the Rockets.
That's going to be a great matchup.
Yeah.
That's going to be great.
Yes.
but speaking of the Rockets, let's move forward to them. So I'll start this one off, guys. If you guys don't mind. If you guys don't mind.
You got this.
All right. So in terms of the bubble, no team benefits more than the Houston Rockets do. I think the whole setup is super favorable for the Rockets, and it's because of the style of play that they use. They are a run up and down the court team. They are an active team. What has been their biggest criticism is their playoff rotations and their, the ability to just falter at the end of the season. But they're coming up. The end of the season is after a 4-month layoff. They have the freshest legs that they've had since the beginning of the season. So and fresh legs. It's going to come down to a very pickup style game where you just simply run up and down the court. I think that the playoffs will provide some, a bit of a slowdown in the game, but I think that the playoffs this year are going to be more are going to be faster than they are in a usual year. And that helps Houston because Houston has the ability to force these teams in the top of the West, the teams that play big, like Denver, like LA, to play small. The Lakers struggle against the Rockets. The Lakers will struggle against the Rockets because the Lakers will be forced to play small. That's what the Rockets do. If the Rockets can force teams to play small, they will have the advantage and they will win because they put the tempo in their favor. And I think that the Rockets have enough talent, especially in that backcourt with Russ and James Harden. And ever since they adopted the whole small ball mindset, Russell Westbrook's been playing out of his mind. He's super efficient. I don't think he's had a game since the small ball started where he's been under 50% from the field. Look, the bubble ball is made for the Rockets because their job the idea of, not playing a guy, taller than 6'8" or wherever they have is concerning, but their job is they don't want to get posted up on. They want to create double teams and force turnovers, and they do a good job of that. And that is why I'm not as concerned about the Rockets as other people might be. So to me, I think that there are 8 teams in which you can't rule out to make it to the finals run. In the East, it's Milwaukee, Toronto, Boston, and Philly. I think those are the 4 teams in the East. I don't think Miami. We talked about it on the last one. Miami, I don't think is a playoff team. Is a championship team. Okay. And then in the West, it's the Clippers and the Lakers, obviously. Then there's a huge gap. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the Rockets are better than any Lakers or Clippers team, but there is a huge gap. They have a chance to beat them in a playoff series, but the Lakers and Clippers should still be heavily favored. The Nuggets are a team you can't rule out either, and the Houston Rockets. That's the last team you can't count out because of the way they play the game. And I think the way they play is going to be very difficult to stop because when the Rockets are on, they are on and they can't be beat. So okay. I'm going to let you guys talk now and give your opinions to the Rockets and try to combat what I just threw out there. Chris, we'll start with you. I think you have something to say.
I actually agree with a lot of what you said.
Thank you.
I agree with it because, to be honest, Houston is my third best team in the West. That was my third best team in the West because Russ, James Harden, that's arguably the best backcourt. Right, that's maybe the standing still, part of the best backcourt standing right now in the whole playoffs. So I think their play style plays into their favor against the top 2 teams in the West, like the Clippers and Lakers. That play style plays right into the Rockets' favor. And if I'm the Clippers, I am begging the Rockets not to drop to 7 somehow, because that would be a series that you would have to be like at least a little bit scared if you were the Clippers, if that was a 2-7 matchup somehow. Now, I would be a little concerned if I were the Clippers.
I'll tell you this. The one team the Rockets don't want to play is the Clippers.
That's the funny thing. It's like, I think it goes both ways.
Yeah.
It goes both ways because it's a weird matchup. And
because the Clippers it is a weird matchup, but the Clippers have they have guys that can contain Harden. Like they would put they'd put Kawhi on Harden and PG on Westbrook, or they put Beverly on Westbrook, and that's the toughest defensive assignment for the Rockets. So the Rockets, I think, are hoping to get to number 5 at least, so that they can avoid the Clippers at all costs until they absolutely have to face them.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I do agree with that. So yeah, but when we come out to Houston, I just think I do like them. They should win a first round series. I would favor them pretty much versus any of these teams.
Mm-hmm.
Denver, Utah, OKC, Dallas. I would favor them versus any of these teams.
Yeah.
I think in my opinion they're a lock to get out of the first round.
Really?
I think they're a lock to get out of the first
I was as confident as you were, Chris. I don't think they are a lock to get out of the first round.
No. I don't think any of these teams are a lock besides the LA teams.
Yeah.
I just think about that. The reason why I say that is because I think these two players are way more hungry than any of these other teams.
Harden Westbrook's window is shrinking. They have maybe 2 years.
I think they're hungrier.
Including this year. I think that, Harden's turning 30, Westbrook's 31. They're not getting any better. This could be it for the two of them. This might be their best chance to win a title with each other, coming off of 4 months rest. This could be their best opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that because you can catch teams off guard, and you could probably catch a team off guard more likely in this than any other year. But I'm just combining the layoff and the hungriness of them. That's the reason why I say they're locked at least out of the first round.
Yeah.
I'm doing all that combined.
Yeah.
I just think they will beat anybody they play between 3 and 7.
Tell me what you're thinking, Ross.
So I like your take. I didn't even think of the fact that it's going to be an empty arena. There's no fans. It's going to play right into their style of communication and moving. But call me old-fashioned. I still think it's going to be very difficult to win with this. This is not even small ball. This is mega small ball. You're going to run it. I think they are. It like you said, it goes both ways. They're as good as they are matchups, as bad as they are with both the Lakers and the Clippers. That makes sense. What could work out for them, which is run and gun, they're too big, they can't keep up with us, is the same that could kill them. They're just gonna post you up and you're gonna do nothing. You can't keep up with the bigs of the Lakers and you can't keep up with the bigs of the Clippers. And I think Clippers are even a worse matchup because if I put Kawhi on any of your players, just say that player's out of the game. You could basically say you might drop 20 with him max. You're not gonna go off. It's impossible.
The Clippers are better than the Rockets.
I think the Clippers and Lakers would give them a really rough time. And unless D'Antoni got something up his sleeve, I think the Lakers and Clippers play style would dominate their play style more. Because whoever's play style comes up top is the team that wins, if that makes sense. Well, if this becomes a run and gun game, no team in the league is beating Houston. If it becomes a run and gun game, I just don't think they'll be able to make that pace. Well, I think teams will slow them down.
The reason why the Rockets are in this position, so when the Warriors became the team that they became, they played small, and it didn't seem like they did, but Kevin Durant was their biggest guy and he was a wing.
But Kevin Durant's also 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
And they were a top defensive team in the league.
Kevin Durant, you can't call Kevin Durant a big.
Yeah, I can. He's 7 feet tall.
But he doesn't play like a big.
Well, who plays like a big? It's 2020.
Exactly.
There's very few players.
Exactly the point of the Rockets. That is exactly the point of the existence of the Rockets, is they don't need to play big. And, and the Lakers, that's
but you still are big.
They do play big. And
it's
that's
hard
why,
to set PJ Tucker as a center. I just don't believe it.
That's what the Rockets are trying to do. Their whole positionless basketball, whatever, it makes total sense. And yes, they are okay with posting up on you and getting 2 points, but Russ is going to drive in and get 2 points on the next bucket, or Harden, or, maybe they'll pop a 3, and that's better than your 2 that you're getting, underneath the basket. And the thing is, what their goal is to try to force you to play small. So
I 100% agree. If they're able to force teams to play small, it's going to be a very deep playoff for them.
That's what Warriors
I just don't think they will.
So successful for as long as they were.
I think that's why a lot of teams struggle against the Warriors. For some reason, people decided to play against the Warriors in their play style. It's like, oh, they're playing small ball, we'll out small ball them.
And who was the one team that Who was the one team that had the best challenge against the Warriors? Who gave
The
the Warriors
Rockets.
the toughest
100%.
challenge?
I
It was the
agree.
Rockets in 2018.
If the Rockets are able to make teams play small ball with them, I think the Rockets could be easily the favorite if every team's playing small ball. I just think the Lakers and the Clippers will not. They just won't budge. And
To
then at
me, I
that
think
point,
what
it's
it
a
is,
battle of matchups, and we don't know which one will win. But I'll take the bigs. I will.
yeah, this is what I think. I think the Lakers have the most talent. However, what they don't want is Anthony Davis to play the five. And I think against the Rockets, you're going to have to force
He won't have a
Anthony
choice.
Davis to play the
100%. I
five.
agree.
And that puts the Lakers at a disadvantage because they are better with. Because the thing is, the Lakers, what they don't have are guards. They don't have guards. They don't have guys that can contain Harden and Westbrook like the Clippers do. The Clippers are perfectly equipped to play the Rockets, and
100%.
they're perfectly equipped to play any team in the league. That is why I think the Clippers are the most dangerous team in the West.
Still my favorite from the beginning of the season.
That
Hasn't changed.
we'll get to that in a little bit, but to me, I think that the Rockets, it doesn't really matter where they sit in the standings. I would like to see them sit in the top of the bracket. I don't think they're going to try. I think they're going to try to win every game and hopefully get to 3. That's their.
They want to see
think
OKC and they want to see Utah. That's
They wanna
very
see Utah.
very favorable matchups. Either one of them.
Yeah, knowing the Rockets though, I just think that they're going to try to win every game. But obviously the dream would be to play the Jazz in the first round, even if they are the 3 seed against the 6 seed Jazz.
And then play the Lakers.
And then, the Lakers are going to be number 1. So to me, like, I think whether you get Oklahoma City in the first round, whether you get Utah in the first round, whether you get Denver in the first round, I think they would just want to be the number. I think 4 or 5
is
would
safe.
help them.
It's a lot safer.
I think a safer path to the conference finals for the Rockets is to go through the Lakers first. I think they are more likely to beat the Lakers than they are to beat the Clippers. So I think being at the top of the bracket is much more suitable for a potential playoff run deep into the October, hopefully. But we'll see. Let's move forward now. We have Utah. We've talked a little bit about Utah, but losing Bogdanovich is really going to hurt this team. And who knows where they sit with their chemistry and whatnot. But Utah, they get New Orleans, Oklahoma City, the Lakers, Memphis, San Antonio, Denver, Dallas, and another game with San Antonio. So Utah is, I think, the team that looks the most suspect, just because without Bogdan. Like, look, in the last 5 games before they moved the season, Bogdanovich was the leading scorer in 3 of them. So I mean, he was a big part of their team, and nobody scored more than 30 in those last 5 games, except for Bojan Bogdanovich in a game against Detroit. So I don't know. What do you guys like? Is this the like Utah is in such a weird position right now? How is this bubble like? What is the best case scenario for Utah in this bubble?
I mean, it's hard to have a best case scenario because you can make anything up. But what I truly believe is their best case scenario is getting in and giving a tough competitive first round against whoever they play. If they drop to 7th or 8th, there's a very good chance to get swept. If they do, because I don't think they have at all, especially losing Bogdanovich. It's a massive deal.
Yeah, they can only drop.
You can't overlook that.
They're 2.5 games back of. They're 2.5 games ahead of 7th right now.
Yeah, they could easily drop down to 7th. I could see it, but after that, you don't even know the mind state of this team. They, as much as Gobert and Mitchell have said they've patched it up, it's hard to not keep that resentment somewhat. Mm-hmm. You know, Gobert was patient zero for the NBA. It seems like. Obviously, we don't know who really had it. No one knows anything, but he's the one that is known for patient zero. Mm-hmm. Jordan Clarkson is the only reason this team got saved, because that Mike Conley contract is looking like one of the worst contracts in NBA history. Yep. I cannot believe how bad Mike Conley is right now. It is. Jordan Clarkson is easily outplaying him, and I think he took over his spot as starting point guard. which is it's embarrassing. But it is what it is. I still love Donovan Mitchell. He's only 23 years old. It seems like his first year, it's not that it was a fluke, but he hasn't taken that next big step. He's still a better player in this league. But, I mean, I just don't see it. I just don't. I think they'll lose to almost any team they play in the first round. I think they could give, just because OKC is still, as much as we love OKC and they're a great team, they're still low on talent, pure talent. And in the playoffs, that can mean a big deal. I think they might give them 6-game challenge, but I still think they'll lose in 6 games. Best case scenario is them losing in 6 games to OKC, honestly. I think every other team probably sweeps them or gives them 5.
All right. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I just think obviously the Bojan injury, that might have been one of the biggest injuries out of any team, and it's probably the biggest one of the biggest ones in any of these teams. So you just lost your second leading scorer. So it's a team that already has a semi-struggle scoring to begin with, and just lose.
That was their big flaw from last year, was the fact that they couldn't score. So they got a scorer, and they were at one point, guys, if you guys remember so long ago, they were number 2 in the West.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They were doing very well, and they didn't really fall off because everyone's close. Even the Clippers are like, because technically everyone's bunched up, so it's like the standings kind of don't really tell because everyone's bunched up. So, but going back to the Jazz, I think the Gobert Mitchell chemistry is questionable. I don't think it's as fixed as everyone says. I think they just wanted to say that just so there's not much of a story, a distraction. I think they said that for less distraction, but deep down, I think there is still problems. So I think that's going to affect it a little bit. And and Ross's point on Mike Conley, that's a large contract. For somebody that's going to come off the bench, potentially. Like, that is...
Yeah. I mean, that's not what they were anticipating when they traded for him.
No.
And they didn't trade. Look, Mike Conley would have made the team better, and the idea of it. So, I think this whole hindsight stuff, I think it's worthless. I think you still make the trade anyway, because the team, the trade that they made for him, traded 3 role guys.
Yeah, they really traded
the right move.
I think they didn't trade much.
Yeah, well, Rubio left in free agency, so they needed a guy. Grayson Allen, Jay Crowder, Kyle Korver, the draft rights to Darius Baisley, and a protected first-round pick.
That's
I would make that deal even today.
Yeah, because that's that is at one point was an all-star caliber point guard.
Which I don't think they still have to absorb the contract is the issue.
Yeah,
that's the only issue.
And his injury history. His injury history has been pretty extensive as of late.
Only played 41 games this season.
Yeah, I mean it was last year too. He's coming off of another bad injury from the other years too.
Yeah.
So he's had an injury history of recent, and combined with that contract, it was a high risk. But if you do get a resemblance of the prime Memphis days, that was worth it then, because he was a really good point guard, and that's what they needed, because Donovan Mitchell was having to do everything at the guard position, and having somebody to play alongside him that's what they
Rubio
needed.
was a good fit next to him.
Oh yeah, I agree because I think the facilitating role. I don't think he really wanted
a lot of Mitchell's flaws. A lot of Mitchell's flaws as a facilitator.
Yeah, and Rubio was mostly that, because Rubio is a very underrated facilitator.
Yeah, I'll just ask this: what are you looking forward to the most out of Utah in the bubble?
Watching Donovan Mitchell. I don't really have a lot to look forward to. I still like Donovan Mitchell as a player. See if he could pull some magic together. That's about it.
Yeah.
I wanna see if chemistry is gonna be good, and I want to see if this layoff actually maybe benefits Mike Conley. Maybe he will play better because of this layoff.
I can't wait to see Utah lose in the bubble. That's what I do not like Utah. Never have, never will. Anyway, let's move on now to Denver. Denver right now sits third in the West after losing prematurely in last year's playoffs at Game 7 at home. They are out for blood. They get Miami to start with OKC, San Antonio, Portland, Utah, both LA teams, and then Toronto to end. That is a mixed bag right there. The two LA teams at the end, I guess, is better than having the two LA teams at the beginning. But Denver needs to do some work before the playoffs start, because if they don't, they could find themselves slipping in the standings real quick. Ross, what do you think about Denver's situation in the bubble right now, and what do they need to do to maximize their potential?
Have full trust in Nikola Jokic as their star player would definitely be the first thing. Not that they haven't, but he is the star of this team. I know a lot of people love Jamal Murray, and he is a great second wing to Jokic. This team on paper is stacked. Like, they've been stacked since before the season. I projected them to win what? I think I said 67 games. I don't know. I say things sometimes. But they're still a really good team. They had every single tool in the tool shed to do it, and they had the experience from last year's, which is, I think, a lot of the reason why they struggled. They just didn't see it. This year they saw it, and they're ready for it. They have a great team. They have Millsap. You have Gary Harris has been underperforming a little bit this year, but Jamal Murray has taken over for what Gary Harris lacked. Michael Porter Jr. is going to be a big key for them because he is a very talented player. He obviously has a lot of issues and a lot of that back problem. It seems to always linger on, and I think right now he's currently injured and missing workouts at Disney, but he's still a transcendent talent. Michael Porter Jr. was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick almost clearly for years and years to come, and then obviously the injury happened and he dropped, and people said this about his work ethic, said that. I think towards the end of the season, I believe he started picking it up a little bit more and just playing overall better. I think this team has all the potential in the world. I don't want to say they're too young, but they are too young. They have a high ceiling simply because of how skilled their roster is, and it makes all the sense in the world for them to challenge any team, including the LA teams. If you look at their roster, it makes all the sense. They have Jokic that can contend with the bigs of the other teams, a highly disciplined coach. But having Jamal Murray as your second player being so young still and Gary Harris underperforming, they could drop down to the 7th very quickly as easily as they could stay at 3rd. It's a toss-up. It really is. And I would love to see them do well because they were predicted by me to have a really good season, and I like to be right. So this is really as much as it's corny to say, we have to wait and see because we don't know what their mindset is, a young team coming to the bubble, if they're ready for this, if they're mentally prepared. We'll know by these 8 games how they're performing in the playoffs. That's all I have to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Chris, why does Denver not get the same kind of love as any other contender?
I think part of it. I think partially it's a small market too. Mm-hmm. They don't get much play. They don't get much TV time. They don't really have that TV star. Because yes, Jokic is like an elite player, but he's not that person that you're gonna. He doesn't have that like explosiveness or just highlight reel like style to him.
Yeah,
he plays very traditional. He's almost like a traditional big that can shoot and pass, but he doesn't play like a small big. He posts up. He can step out and shoot threes. He's one of the best, maybe if not the best passing big man in the league. Probably the best passing big man in the league. So I just don't think they have like what you call the sexiness.
Yeah.
That people love to see. But they still are very talented. I'm not as high on them. It's because Gary Harris has been kind of like has not been that great. And they're also paying him a pretty decent amount of money, and he's not playing up to where he's supposed to. And Jamal Murray is really good, but people take advantage of his defense because he is a suspect defender. And that's what hurt them. I think that's kind of what hurt them last year. CJ McCollum went to school on him, defense on him in that in that series, and any of these other guards could do that, like a Donovan Mitchell or a Chris Paul or a James Harden or Russell Westbrook. So that, or Iluka if they play them somehow. So it's like I think that's a suspect thing as well as defensively with some of these players. That's why I'm not as high on them.
I think Denver is look. Let's take this a swap. Let's take a swap. Put the Clippers in Denver and put Denver in LA as the second team, as the Clippers. Who would get more coverage?
I think the LA teams always get more coverage.
Yeah.
But
no matter what.
Who would be more marketable?
Still the Clippers.
Yeah, because it's just like LA is LA. Everyone loves the bright lights.
So if you traded all of the Nuggets to the Clippers and all of the Clippers to the Nuggets, you think the Clippers, who are the old Nuggets, would be more profitable?
Oh, okay. No.
Yeah.
No. Okay, sorry. I don't understand the question. No. Kawhi Leonard's still the most marketable player, which is why the Nuggets would then be more marketable because they're the favorite. No, okay, I understand your question. No. Because the Clippers were relevant.
I should have worded it like that to begin with.
Yeah, the Clippers were irrelevant for years and years and years before Lob City. They weren't a team.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't know anything about the Clippers. I can't name any players before Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan were there. And I'm an NBA fan, although I was very young.
Baron Davis.
There you go, Baron Davis, also a Warriors. Look at me. And no. Based on that, it's the Kawhi Leonard show. Kawhi Leonard's arguably the best player in the league. He's easily top 3 in some people's ones. My one as of right now, but easily wherever he goes, he shifts the league. He's a league shifter. Jokic, as much as we love him, is not a league shifter. If he goes to a team, that team is not going to get all the press, not going to get all the coverage, is not going to become the best team in the league. He's just not that level.
He's a league shifter because he won championships.
100%. Led a team that no one thought.
That's what Denver needs to do is win a championship. Otherwise, they won't get the same respect.
Agreed.
And that's what's unfortunate. And I think, though, that this is probably the best chance Denver has to win a championship so far. Their window, though, is still wide open. I mean, Nikola Jokic is do you think Nikola Jokic is in his prime? Or do you think that we have a better version of Jokic coming? Could we see it in the bubble?
You can maybe see I think you can see it slightly better. You could see a more mobile defender because he's always been a little bit on the heavy side. Though he's lost weight, he has slimmed down during his quarantine. But before it was like he was a little bit on the heavy side and could be a little slow.
7 foot 250.
Yeah, so his defense. If his defense improves, his defense can improve. That's the thing. If his defense improves, you will see a much better Jokic.
Yeah.
I think he's got a little bit more flexibility, but he just it seems like he's locked in his play style. If he becomes a better defender, that's going to help out. Do I think he'll be? I think that elite defender trait is something you'll know at a younger age, if that makes sense. You don't really just become an elite defender overnight. You either are an elite defender or you're just not. You become a better defender, and I think he kind of used to be looked at as a liability on the defensive end. I don't think he's there now. I think he's improved to where he's just average enough to where you can't dominate him. But there's certain guys that still push him around. He's not the toughest player. I think if he fixes that, I think he's 25.
He's 25. You think he'd be older?
I mean, 25. I think you don't reach your prime till 27. So we'll see a little bit in the next couple of years. I mean, depends on the player. Seems like a lot of people around 26, 27. So we'll know in the next coming years. But I think getting a little bit better defensively, maybe a little more consistent, knocking down the three is all he could really improve. Do I think he'll be a top 3 player in this league? I think those are always. I think in the way this NBA is shaped up, you kind of have to be a wing or a really, 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 really elite guard to be a top 3 player, just because of the way the NBA is set up. It's not the 90s anymore.
Yeah. I don't see a big to be honest, I don't see a traditional big being like a top 3 player ever again, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So I guess y'all think Denver is a second round exit?
That's the peak. That's my ceiling.
Yeah. Ross?
Yeah, I still don't think they beat the LA teams. I'm very high on those LA teams.
Yeah. So let's talk about those LA teams, and let's talk about them in tandem because I think that they deserve it. I think that I put them both on the same level. I don't think that you can put one above the other. So let's talk about both the Clippers and Lakers. I'm just going to ask you guys straight up: who's the better team, Lakers or Clippers?
I'm gonna go. I will still go with the Clippers, but it's by hairs. It really is by hairs. I just think they have a little bit more depth and a little bit more defensively sound than the Lakers. Even though I think their defensive rating, I think the Lakers are still technically better. I just think having Kawhi, Paul George, and Beverly, those will help in the playoffs. Those are lockdown guys. Maybe not as much of a team. As a team, they might not be better defensively, but those lockdown guys will make a difference. But it's by hairs. That 7 game, I think all season we've all been waiting for the 7-game series, and if it doesn't happen, I'll be shocked and disappointed. That's what we need to see.
Chris, go ahead. Sorry,
I'm trying to think. It's tough. I'm gonna go Lakers by hairs because I just love the AD and LeBron tandem has worked from day one. That's been it has clicked from day one, and I think I think they're slightly deeper. They are slightly deeper than the Clippers, too. I think losing Rondo and not having Bradley, I think that will hurt a little bit because they already were a little thin on guards.
Yeah.
You lost 2 guards, so it's like you did sign J.R. Smith. He hasn't played this year, but he still is a really good perimeter defender, and he still can knock down threes when you need him. Remember, he's one of the top players in makes in NBA Finals, so he can shoot threes. Yeah. He's a very good 3-point shooter. Even though he made that blunder in the finals, he's still a LeBron James person, that a pro LeBron person, where he fits with LeBron with the catch and shoots. I think the Lakers are just gonna inch it. I'm almost comparing it to, remember that Heat Spurs 2013 finals?
Yeah.
That's what I'm kind of seeing. Yeah. One wins one, the other wins the other. It's just until somebody wins 2 straight games. That's kind of how I see it.
Also, the fact that I think LeBron deep down knows that this might be his last shot. He's not going to get any younger.
I don't think he thinks that.
I mean,
he is.
It's possible.
Do you think that there's a
Father Time is undefeated, but he doesn't look like you're right. It doesn't look like he's slowing down at all. But
do you think there's a chance AD leaves the Lakers after this?
No.
No.
You don't trade.
So that's why I think, and I think Anthony Davis is similar to Jokic, in which I don't think we've seen the best out of Anthony Davis yet. So I think, honestly, how much do the Lakers lose for not having Rondo and Bradley there? Ross, I'll ask you that.
You'll lose a little bit with Bradley. I think Rondo's a little bit more replaceable. It's always good to have a general out there, a guy that could really command an offense, because that's as talented as LeBron is. The reason why he is LeBron is he's going to dominate the floor and dominate the ball and move it and really help out. Bradley is a really good player.
Yeah.
Right, but they're both replaceable. I think.
Let me ask you this.
As much as Alex Caruso is a meme, I think he could easily step in for either one of them. I love Alex Caruso.
Let me ask you this, Ross. Let me give you the Frank Vogel hat. The Frank Vogel hat. Who's your starting 5 for the Lakers?
Ooh. Okay, well, let's get the obvious out the way. I'm going LeBron, Anthony Davis. I think my starting center, they went with JaVale for a lot of the year.
Yeah.
So I'm going JaVale. I'm starting Kuzma.
You starting Kuzma?
I'll start Kuzma. This is if I was doing it. I understand that this would destroy their bench. I'm just saying what I would do. And then I'm putting Danny Green out there because of the chemistry with LeBron. You got another shooter, another lockdown defender that can take a lot of stress off LeBron, and a guy that LeBron's comfortable playing with. That's my starting 5. If you had to replace any of them, you take out Kuzma, maybe put in another big, depending on who you play.
Another big.
It depends on who you play. If you're playing the Clippers and they're running the hair, it depends. If you're playing the Clippers and they're running Harrell and Zubac, you might have to. You could put in
you have
possibly
AD
a Morris.
and McGee or AD and Dwight.
I mean, I had AD as my 4.
Yeah.
No, wait. I had AD as my 5. No, wait. What
no,
was my
you're
starting?
4, and McGee is your 5.
So you could put Kuzma at the 3, or you could put. I mean, I'm not sure about their starting lineup. You could put Caruso.
Yeah.
And replacing Bradley. I don't know. They just have so many options.
This is what I would do. I think what will happen is LeBron will play point. Danny Green will play the 2. I think KCP will be the first guy to start or to get an opportunity to start. I think he'll play the 3 or the wing with Danny Green, and then you have AD and McGee down low. And Dwight can come off the bench. Kuzma can come off the bench. Caruso can come off the bench and can handle the point guard duties for LeBron. Then you have J.R. Smith that could come in for Caldwell Pope. Markieff Morris can come in for AD. They have a very deep team. But if you take Kuzma and you put him in that starting lineup, that could ruffle.
I agree. I'm just saying if I were you. If it's a final series, you might have to put your best players out there depending on who you're playing.
Against the Bucks, maybe Kuzma is a better fit to guard a guy like a Middleton, or a Wesley Matthews, maybe even. But what the Lakers need is the Lakers have the depth, but that's because Kuzma's there. Kuzma's a guy that should be starting on majority of the teams in the league. Yet because he plays for the Lakers, he comes off the bench. And I think coming off the bench has helped for him. I think with this team, that's what works best for them. They need a solid 6-man. And I think any good team needs a solid 6-man. The Clippers have one in Lou Williams, and the Lakers have one in Kuzma. But,
yep. Chris, it's always good to have a guy off the bench that could start. It's always a plus.
Chris, were you going to say something right there?
Actually, the Clippers have 2.
Yeah.
That's that's why they're difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So I'll ask you this, Chris. So you got the Lakers or the Clippers? Is this the conference finals?
Yes. I think even though the West is more deep than the East, I think it's more inevitable that this is a conference finals than the East. I think it's easier to pick the conference finals in the West than the East, even though the West is deeper. Because I just think the 2 teams in the West, the 2 LA teams are just way ahead. They're in their own league, essentially, than the others. And unlike the East, where you may have half those playoff teams could get out of that conference.
Yeah. Who is more important to their team? Paul George to the Clippers or Anthony Davis to the Lakers?
Anthony Davis to the Lakers.
Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Just because I think Kawhi, as we saw last year, he could do a lot by himself. Paul George is a great person to have, but I think LeBron needs AD. He needs a guy to kind of ship the load to at his age. I think Kawhi, if he needed to, I don't think he'd say a word if Paul George just stopped playing. I'd be like, all right, well, I'll just go out there and do it myself. I don't know, whatever Kawhi voice. I think Anthony Davis is highly valuable.
Yeah, I think that is the difference in these 2 teams, in which team will play better, and if they play in a hypothetical series, is whether Paul George outplays AD or AD outplays Paul George.
Yeah,
because these 2 teams, I think the Clippers are better equipped to play majority of the teams in the West than the Lakers are. However, if the Lakers can get to the conference finals and meet the Clippers, I think all bets are off, and you're going to get 7. I think 7 games is what's going to happen. I do. I think the Clippers have a deep enough roster. I do think, though, with not having Avery Bradley, that does hurt the Lakers a lot more than I think people think. Because then you're relying now on basically Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and J.R. Smith to pick up the load. J.R. Smith, who hasn't played in the league this year, and the Clippers' response to that is Reggie Jackson or or a Landry Shamet, like guys that I trust a little bit more than KCP, J.R. Smith, guys like they put shooters around LeBron, and the Clippers have guys that are playmakers around Kawhi. So that's why I think the best team in the West is the Clippers. However, losing to the Lakers is not something that would surprise me. In fact, honestly, if LeBron can make it to the finals with the Lakers, it will be a legacy-defining moment because very few teams have and because this is also him and Kawhi are basically fighting for the same distinction. They're fighting for, I want to be the leader of 3 teams going to the NBA Finals. Not a lot of guys can say that they've done that, if any at all. Can you guys think of any guys that have led 3 teams to an NBA Finals?
Led?
Yeah,
Nope.
like off the top of your head.
Nope. The only I've known of 2. I mean, I know people of doing 2, like Kareem.
I know 2.
I mean,
you could argue that Durant got 2 teams to the finals.
Yeah, but we're talking 3. We're talking 3.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
Katie could be that next year.
Shaq,
yeah.
You want to count Shaq, but I mean,
I would say that's
Miami. That was Dwayne
over.
Wade.
Yeah, D-Wade was like
Shaq would be, I guess, the closest that I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of...
Well, a lot of players, even back in the days, they didn't get a chance to be 3 teams in their prime. It's just not how that worked. We'll probably see it in the next 15, 20 years, just because players seem to move around every contract now. I wouldn't be surprised if Durant takes the Nets to the finals next year, and that'd be 3 taken to the finals.
That would be, so that would be the new legacy goal, is to be able to do that. And
win would be the one. I guess Durant's never gonna get that 3rd, but
yeah,
whatever.
So that is what these players are fighting for, is to be the guy that can say, I was the best player on 3 different franchises leading them to the finals.
Yeah.
That's what they're fighting for. I think that the Lakers, the playoff experience for each team is about the same. They have finals MVPs on each team, and a guy, their number 2 guy hasn't been to the finals before. I guess Paul George has a little bit more playoff experience than Anthony Davis, but I don't think that's going to matter for this potential final series. But let's. I'm going to ask one question. Just who you got in how many games?
In a series between them 2 or overall?
Between them 2.
I got the Clippers in 7.
Clippers in 7. Chris?
I have Lakers in 7. I just don't know which Paul George is going to show up, because the last couple of times I see him in the playoffs, it hasn't been pretty.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Clippers in 6.
6.
I think they have enough to beat them in 6. I like Beverly in the backcourt. I think he could give some fits to a bunch of guys. I think the Clippers defense is just better. And I think they are the deeper team. So that's why I put the Clippers ahead of the Lakers by that margin. I think the Clippers have the best chance to get out of the West, because they can match up with any team. I think it would concern me if the Lakers saw Denver in the second round. It would concern me a little bit if the Lakers saw the Rockets in the second round. Whereas the Clippers, I don't necessarily have those concerns as much as I do with the Lakers. So for me, I think the Clippers are the best team in the West. And
I agree 100%.
And that is a good place to take a pause here. And so Clippers, what did we say yesterday? So I guess actually no, I'm gonna put the West out first, because the West starts before the East. So I won't say what we talked about on the podcast we recorded yesterday, because we're gonna put it out tomorrow for the viewers. So not gonna talk about what that is, but I do encourage you to come back to Hitting the Field wherever you listen to the HTF podcast, whether it be on our YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe now, or download the podcast on Apple Podcasts to check out our Eastern Conference preview And be sure to follow Hitting the Field on Twitter and Instagram at Hitting the Field for all the HTF content you can hope for. We're winding down the HTF podcast over the next 2 weeks and heading on to 2020, 2021, the 11th and 12th season of Hitting the Field. The show is growing at an exponential rate, and we cannot wait to share what we have in store. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the HTF podcast, and we'll catch you on the flip side.